Hello guys and welcome to today's Los Blancos podcast. Today it is an athletic club preview and it's just me on my own, so that is it. Let's get into today's podcast. Okay, so today we are obviously playing Athletic Club de Bilbao and it's going to be a difficult game, let's say that. And so far this season it's been up and down for Athletic Club. They find themselves 8th in La Liga under Ernesto Valverde, and at the start of the season it looked so good. They were doing very well, and they were keeping up in the top 4 race, and they're still very much in the hunt for European football. However, they have fallen off a little bit, regressed to the mean, and so far, and it looks a bit like maybe the steam's run out for Ernesto Valverde and Athletic Club, and I think maybe this is possibly where they will end up at the end of the season, which is just outside of the European spots. But there's still a long season to go for them, and they will 100% be looking to make those European spots. And this is a good place to start. You get a win at Real Madrid, and anything can happen from now to the end of the season. This could be a huge morale boosting game for them, and in that case you really do hope that the Athletic Club players don't see it that way in terms of a Real Madrid perspective. You look at our Athletic Club, there are so many good players there, but there are certainly weak spots as well. Someone like Oan Sanset, Iker Munyain, Iñaki Williams, or Nico Williams. All of these players have caused us a lot of problems, and have done in the past. You've seen Iñaki Williams cause us huge problems in the past. Same with Nico Williams. Iker Munyain has always been a really underrated player who's really creative, really good on the ball. Oyan Sanset is very good at picking up positions where you don't expect to see players, and he's good on the ball for that as well. And you see a team there in Athletic Club who play a way that Ernesto Valverde wants to play, maybe a little bit more direct when you've got the ball, maybe quick passing, getting behind as quick as you can, which is what Ernesto Valverde wants to do. And they sit around 8th position in terms of possession stats in La Liga, so it's not going to be a game where we're going to dominate the ball most of the time. It's going to be, I reckon, an even game in terms of possession, maybe 50-50, something like that, where both teams have periods of play where they both have the ball. Now we're coming off a huge win against Villarreal at the Ceramica, which we haven't done in 6 years. 6 years it's been since we won at the Madrigal, and to do it in that fashion, coming 2-0 behind, and looking horrible at the back, looking really bad. And then in the second half, everything changed. 2 subs made, Ceballos and Asensio completely changed the game for us in that game, and we ended up winning that game 3-2. It was good that way, and I think hopefully that gives us a little bit more momentum. Obviously, there were bad things in that game that we have to look to iron out, but there were so many positives from that game. We look to take them to this game, and away at San Mamés, it's going to be a very difficult game at San Mamés, 8 o'clock today, UK time, and it's we have had our problems at San Mamés in the past, not as bad as the problems at the Ceramica, but there is certain positions we could look to take advantage of. Certain like the fullbacks of Athletic Club aren't exactly the quickest, and where we've struggled in the past is from the fullbacks of opposition teams being very aggressive on Vinicius Jr. Not being able to find space, not getting help from others of his team. So I think maybe those two that's where we could look to get at them, maybe stretch that team, which is something we haven't done so far this season. So let's get into my lineup for this match. And in goal, obviously Thibaut Courtois. Midweek he had a decent game. Not much he could do about those 2 goals. I mean, the first one was just an excellent finish from Etienne Capoue, and the second one, it was just a great play. And then Samuel Chukwueze, it was 1-1 with Courtois. Chukwueze took it nicely. So ultimately Courtois couldn't do much. in that game. As much as his goals have been so far this season, most of his goals have been where he really couldn't do anything about the shot, because it's been a really high XG chance or something like that, where the defense has to do better to prevent that getting to Courtois. So let's see what Courtois can do in this game, because let's hope that the defense doesn't give up more of those chances. But talking about the defense, we have problems. Right back is perhaps the biggest problem we have right now. Now, last week against Alejandro Balde and Gavi, Dani Carvajal really showed his age. And that one moment where Dani Carvajal was really high up the pitch, and then Alejandro Balde just blitzes past him, that was really significant in my opinion. And I think that signaled the moment where I thought, yeah, this Carvajal's out of his depth now. They're out of his depth, and I think he can certainly have good games. He's certainly proved that he can have good games. He showed that against Luis Diaz in the Champions League final. However, games like that where you look at Alejandro Balde, and that's not a solo problem. He's had this many times over the last year. Nuno Mendes in the PSG game last season, it was exactly the same as what Balde did to him. He just ran past him so easily, and that double team of Mendes and Mbappe completely ruined Carvajal at that night in the Parc des Princes. And that is something we're gonna have to look to address, in my opinion. I do believe that this summer we will look to sign a right back. I generally don't see a way we cannot. The only problem is the truly elite right backs are not exactly available. We can't just go in for Hakimi or Reece James in the summer. I don't think they'll both be unavailable. I think they'll both be unavailable in the summer. So we're going to have to look to maybe a younger player like Malo Gusto, who maybe isn't ready for Real Madrid at this current point, but can definitely develop. But that is a huge risk considering the decline of Dani Carvajal. So it's something which I think is a difficult position for us. But in this Athletic Club game, I think we have to start with Eder Militao at right back, and that slightly goes into the centre backs as well. With the centre backs, I've gone for Rudiger and Nacho. Now, in terms of why I've put Militao at right back, I do think that the partnership, the centre back partnership of Militao and Rudiger, I think it just can't run. I don't think it can work, to be totally honest. I was one who was an advocate for it at the start of the season. I was thinking, this is going to be a good centre back partnership. It could have good things for us. It could do well for us. Similar to what Ramos and Pepe, two aggressive centre backs, worked well together. Yes, they got red cards, but they worked so well together. I thought maybe that would work, but no, because of the fact that neither of them really step up as a leader in the centre half position. And I think that's been the main problem. There's been a lack of organisation between the two of them, and I think that's why you have to either play Nacho or Alaba at all times, preferably Alaba, but Alaba's not available for this match. So one of those two have to play at all times, and then alongside them you go for Rudiger or Militao. And for me at this current moment, it's got to be Militao. But in this game we don't have Alaba available, so we have to play Nacho and Rudiger, in my opinion. And Rudiger, his performances have warranted him being dropped. I do realise the fact that you can't be reactionary in this situation. You have to look at it from the perspective that ultimately Rudiger is a fantastic centre back. He's top centre back. He's our best centre back, and ultimately we have to look at it from that position. However, so far this season he hasn't really impressed. I've got to say, he hasn't really impressed. I think following the World Cup, it's been really dodgy performances from Rudiger. Performances where you wonder, this guy was considered a really good progressive centre back. How has he just lost the ability to distribute the ball from the back? But I don't think it's as simple as that. I think there has been a few problems at Real Madrid, and I think Rudiger has been one of the main ones. But ultimately, we don't have an option in this game, and therefore I do think Eder Militao at right back has to be played there. So for me, the centre backs, left centre back is Rudiger, and right centre back is Nacho. Left back, Ferland Mendy. I don't think Ferland Mendy's had the greatest of seasons. However, he's been probably better than most of the other defenders in the last few games. I think we will look to sell Ferland Mendy in the summer, to be totally honest. I think if an offer comes in of, let's say, 40 million euros, I think that's an immediate sale. And I think we will look to go and get someone like Alphonso Davies in the future, maybe in 2024. We'll look to get Alphonso Davies, and I think that's, if we are truly to progress, I think that's what we need to help Vinicius Junior on the left. If you get Vinicius Junior and Alphonso Davies attacking a right back on the left, that's just raps for the right back, to be totally honest. So, left back, I think Ferland Mendy, he's proved his worth, in my opinion, defensively. And I think in this game, you're going to have to do that once again, because you're going to be coming up against either Inaki Williams or Nico Williams. And we know how difficult those two players are to defend against. And in this current moment, we do not have a surplus of defenders to be fielding. So ultimately, when you've got a solid defender in Ferland Mendy, that's all you can ask for. So you just ask for the defensive ability, and let's hope the attack can create enough going forward. But in that midfield three, I'm going to look to a midfield three of defensive midfield of Camavinga, and then the two central midfielders up ahead of him. I'll go for Ceballos and Valverde. Now, Ceballos had a fantastic game midweek. He came on around the 55th minute, and he completely changed that game. Two key chances created, and then the final goal to score the winner. It was fantastic from Dani Ceballos. He completely changed the dynamic of the game. His dribbling, his getting out of space so quickly, so easily, his chance creation was fantastic. He completely changed the game for us. And I think in terms of Toni Kroos, he didn't have the greatest of games midweek. It's not usual like to have Toni Kroos have one of those games, but I think it's starting to form a pattern here. When we have bad games against the lower teams, it's when Toni Kroos is unavailable. When we have bad games against the top teams, it's when Toni Kroos is available. I think, to be totally honest, I do think that Toni Kroos has declined. There's no doubt about that, but Toni Kroos is still a valuable member of this squad. And I do want him to sign that contract, because against these lower teams, maybe not Athletic Club, but against, let's say, Cadiz and Real Valladolid, I think, Toni Kroos is so key, because he dictates the tempo. You saw against Rayo Vallecano, where we didn't have Toni Kroos, Vallecano just made that so chaotic for us. We couldn't control that game. They pressed us so high. We couldn't do anything about it. They made it so chaotic. We couldn't deal with it. Rayo Vallecano got the win there, and it was somewhere where, well, maybe it would have been better to have Toni Kroos available for that match. Obviously, he was suspended for that match, so nothing we could do about that. But you also look in games like Barcelona last week, where Toni Kroos was available, Toni Kroos was played. It seemed like when he doesn't have the possession, when he's up against a team that likes to have the possession, Toni Kroos perhaps isn't as useful against a team like Barcelona. And maybe that's a game where you play Camavinga in midfield with Tchouaméni and Modric. So players who can press the other opposition midfield, players with physicality, just to get yourself forward quickly enough, because there were counter-attacking opportunities in that match and we just didn't take them. And I'm not saying that's because of Toni Kroos, but there were just opportunities to spring a counter-attack. We didn't take them, and ultimately that did cost us that match. In terms of the attacking front, we couldn't create absolutely anything. We couldn't create nothing from that match, and a lot has to be said for that. There's no doubt Toni Kroos can certainly help in certain big games, like against Liverpool, for example, and I think he can do really well in terms of that. But that is rather. That is the outlier, not rather than the mean. I do think that perhaps we have to consider, how much, and he can certainly do with fitness as well. You've got Toni Kroos is 32 now, I believe. Modric is 37. You have to rotate. You can't keep playing them every single match. You've got players here, quality options here. Dani Ceballos, who would start for maybe 80% of teams in La Liga, who would start for most teams in the world. And you've got Dani Ceballos, you've got Camavinga, you've got Tchouaméni, you've got Valverde, all available for you. You've got to rotate Kroos and Modric. You cannot keep playing them every single game, because you are feeling the repercussions of that right now. Because in my opinion, you look over to Modric as well. It's completely they're completely done for fitness. Modric looks like he's still stuck in Qatar, to be totally honest. He looks so devoid of fitness right now. I think, another rest would be needed for him. I don't think we should play him against Athletic Club unless we absolutely need to create some chances towards the end. Maybe in the 65th minute we bring him on to create some chances for us. So listen, we've got options there. We have to use them. In terms of Tchouaméni, and that midweek, he went to the Bulls versus Pistons game in the NBA in midweek in Paris, and he was spotted there, and a lot of criticism came out for him in the newspapers, Marca and AS. Listen, I've got no problems with him going to that game. He wasn't available for the match. It wasn't like he was available and he just didn't decide to come to the match. He wasn't unavailable for that match. He's injured. I've got no problems. He issued the apology just to make sure that Marco don't get away from him. So I've got no problems with that, in my opinion. So let's talk about that front three now. And for me, I've gone for something a little bit different with this front three. I've gone for Asensio on the right wing, Vinicius Junior on the left, and then Benzema up top. Rodrigo dropped for this game. At midweek, it was a poor performance from Rodrigo, and I do think those frustrations that he took out on Ancelotti, those were rather to himself, not to Ancelotti, in my opinion. I don't think Rodrigo would ever do that to Ancelotti. I don't think Rodrigo is that type of person to do that to Ancelotti, and I don't think it's too much of a problem. However, I do think that when Asensio came on, he completely changed the game in one way, and that is by stretching the pitch. He stretched the pitch. He went on the right, and he just completely stretched the pitch, which is a bit abnormal. Why Asensio does that when Rodrigo doesn't, because Rodrigo is right-footed on the right wing. He would go on the outside more than the left footer is on the right wing, but Asensio completely stretched that game, and as a result, he wasn't the most dangerous player, but he completely stretched that game, and Vinicius Junior got opportunities to completely run that game in the second half, and you saw where that came from. And Vinicius Junior created that final goal, and he scored the first goal to get that comeback going as well. So it was really a fantastic performance by Vinicius Junior, but I don't think it could have been done without Asensio. And me and Sean have talked about how Vinicius Junior needs help. Perhaps the help he needs is by players to create space for him rather than actual help. Because last season you saw when that right wing position was undecided, it was Asensio most of the time. And when Asensio played, Vinicius Junior normally played really, really well. And I don't think it's a coincidence that when Asensio plays, Vinicius Junior plays well as well. Maybe Asensio doesn't score a goal, maybe Asensio doesn't provide an assist, maybe Asensio doesn't do much in a game. However, one thing he does do is create space for Vinicius Junior by opening up the space, by dragging the defenders out onto the right. Ultimately, that is valuable because if he can increase Vinicius's output, I don't care how much Asensio does, because ultimately Vinicius is so valuable, and in these current moments Vinicius has been struggling because the defenders have been taking him 3-on-1, and Asensio, just if he can make that where he can drag those defenders out wide and open up the space for Vinicius Junior, it doesn't really matter if Vinicius gets 2-on-1 because there's space to be had. And for me, as a result, I would like Asensio to start this game, see what he can do, whether this is just that game was just an outlier, or whether the theory is right that Vinicius Junior plays better when Asensio is playing as opposed to Rodrigo. It doesn't make sense, in my opinion, in terms of the connection that Vinicius and Rodrigo has, but in practice, it did work. And last season, you saw, at the start of the season, Vinicius played so well when Asensio was playing on the right. And as the season went on, as in La Liga, as the season went on, when Valverde started playing on the right and Rodrigo started playing on the right, as opposed to Asensio, the Vinicius's output decreased towards the end of the season. And many people attributed that to the defenders becoming more accustomed to Vinicius Junior. However, it's happened again midweek against Villarreal. I would like to see whether that's a genuine theory or just a chance that happened midweek against Villarreal. But up front, Benzema, he had a quiet game midweek, but I don't think that's too much of a problem, especially when everyone else did so well. So Benzema, I expect him to get back into the goals. I think he scored the most of his goals against Athletic Club. So an opponent he absolutely loves, an opponent he loves the most. I do expect him to get back into the goals once again today. And let's hope Real Madrid wins once again today. Now, that was my lineup. But if you want to see Sean's lineup, who obviously wasn't with us today, he should be back the next week. If you want to see Sean's lineup, you got to head over to Real Madrid Committee on Instagram. The link will be in the description. Go drop them a follow. It's the best Real Madrid page on Instagram, so go drop them a follow. But that is it for today's Los Blancos podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.